All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the Million Dollar Relationships Podcast. And today I am here with Amanda Held. Amanda, welcome. So awesome to have you today.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm so excited to be here with you.
I am too. And you know, this is such a cool way that you and I met. So this is only our second conversation that we've ever had. And the first one we just had recently, within the last month. And yet, right from the get-go, it felt like you and I have known each other for years. And
it really has. When you talk about relationships, I feel like we just connected like old friends. It wasn't even like a new conversation.
yeah. And you know, you and I, we didn't even know it, that we've had this mutual friend in Stephanie Sinclair. And
Yes.
I met Stephanie, I want to say it was probably 2014, 2015. We were both in this mastermind group called The Family that was hosted by a gentleman by the name of Kevin Nations. And Stephanie and I were both in that group. And but I have not spoken with Stephanie in years. And yet she made a post recently on Facebook talking about philanthropic stuff. And that she is like really getting involved in this, and she's wanting to learn more about it and all that. And come to find out that, you know, I ended up making a comment on one of her posts, which then inspired me. I said, I'm going to write my own post talking about this a little bit, because, you know, we started a thing called the Thompson Family Foundation back in 2008, and we've had lots of experiences with that over the years. And through me commenting on her post, you ended up seeing that. You ended up sending me a friend request, and we started talking a little bit on Messenger. We got on Zoom and had a conversation, and here we are. And
Here we are.
It is so cool the way that we met. And like, I just am so inspired by the work that you are doing, Amanda. And just have really been looking forward to this interview and being able to let you share your story and your experience around this topic of relationships, and because it plays big into what you're doing. And you, in fact, I remember when you had sent me the link to your website, and on there you have this video that's kind of like your story and stuff. And I remember it's probably about a 20-some minute video. And I started watching it, sitting here, right here on my desk. I got about 6 minutes into it. And I was so moved by what you were sharing in that I called my wife and I said, honey, Lisa, you got to come watch this with me. And so I started over, and her and I watched the whole thing together. And it is just really, like I said, I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today, and just let as many people know about what you're doing, and also just kind of, you know, together, you and I today, through this conversation, we're going to be able to impact some really awesome entrepreneurs, founders, CEOs in a powerful way. And so what I'd like to do is just start off by turning it over to you to share, so you can share a little bit about what you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about what you do. And we'll just start there, Amanda.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. And before we dive in, I just want to thank you again for this opportunity, and for the platform to be able to share it. I think as we were connecting, one of the things that became very clear for both of us is that we both have a heart for people and for humanity. So any opportunity to share wisdom and share healing with the world is amazing. So I'm incredibly grateful for that opportunity. Yeah. And I think, especially for entrepreneurs, like if we look at what is an entrepreneur, I feel like for the most part, it's somebody that's been through a struggle, that's had some challenge and some pain, and through that has found a way to do something better, right? And so then we go forward with this solution, and then we're able to share that solution with other people so they don't have to go through what we went through. And whether that's a product or service that didn't work so well, or it's a life path or a emotional or mental challenge that we've been through, I think a huge piece of successful entrepreneurism is saying, that's a challenge I've been through. Here's how I've overcome it. And now I'm going to present it to the world, obviously in a way that people are ready to pay money for in some form. But also on a bigger scale than that, it's impact and legacy, right?
Yeah.
So Hooves stands for Healing of Our Veterans Equine Services. And we provide 4-day healing intensives for veterans all around the country, and hopefully someday all around the globe. And this healing intensive is really a product of my own struggles, which I'll share a little bit about as we get into the interview, and how I was basically told that I would never overcome these struggles, and that I had to live a certain way for the rest of my life, and that I would never be really fully functioning. And I thought, like, I'm too ambitious. I feel like I'm a really good person. I try, I care. And I just can't believe that I don't have a purpose, or that I can't have the quality of life that I want to have. So instead of taking all of these diagnoses and these medications, I decided to turn to nature and God. And when we talk about relationships, really, and you'd asked me who I wanted to talk about on this interview, but I think really the biggest relationship for me is God. And I believe that God facilitates all the rest of the amazing connections and relationships that we need to become successful entrepreneurs and to have impact on the world. And how I got there is quite interesting, because as I was going through these struggles, I had bad thing after bad thing after bad thing happen. And I know now, coaching entrepreneurs, that this is kind of a pattern, right? And it's like you have this vision of what you want your life to be like, and you try to go for it, and there's all these roadblocks, and you just keep getting, like, sometimes tripped up and tripped up and tripped up, and sometimes it's easy to be like, oh, I'm a good person, like, why is God doing this to me? And it can turn our hearts a little hard, and that's certainly where I was at when I hit my rock bottom. And I got to a point where I started even questioning if there was a God. And and then I had a bunch of loss. I lost my marriage, and I came back. I lived in beautiful Colorado. I had to come back to Ohio. I swore I'd never come back here. And then I lost my best friend. And that was kind of like, we were supposed to be starting a business together. And I got to this point where I was like, I'm so mad at God that I just don't even know, like, if there really was a God, then how could he let all this bad stuff happen? And then I kind of, like, just started talking to God, and I was like, okay, giving him ultimatums, right? Like, that's a thing. But I was like, okay, God, if you're really real, then I need you to save my life. And it's interesting because I gave God that challenge, and 3 days later, 3 is a magic number, right? There's something about 3 days. 3 days later was my first meaningful relationship that happened, right? And so I got a call from a girl who, her husband was friends with my ex. And she said, hey, Amanda, I know this is probably a weird phone call because we haven't spoken in a while, but you popped into my head, and I'm going to this healing retreat, and I thought I would invite you to come with me. And I was like, oh, this is so strange, right? And I thought, well, maybe this is like God answering my prayer / threat. I don't know what you would really call it. And so I went to this retreat. This was after I was told that I wouldn't be functioning again by the doctors.
Mm-hmm.
And in this 3-day retreat, it completely restored me. And I experienced a profound healing that changed the entire trajectory of my life. And that never would have happened without that relationship with Jennifer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it's absolutely amazing. So that was, like, really where I started to, expand my awareness, I guess. So I got out of the rabbit hole. I experienced some profound healing. And then I wanted to share that healing. You know, we get inspired by something that saves us. And
Yeah.
then we're like, oh my gosh, I need to share this with the world. I want other
Mhm.
people who were like me struggling to not struggle and maybe not have to go so far down the rabbit hole as I went.
Mhm.
And so I didn't really know exactly what that looked like yet. I just knew that I had a purpose in me and I wanted to start doing that. And shortly after, I created Riverbend Equine Therapy. And I did that through another relationship with a gentleman named Rob Pliskin. And I had, prior to this, I was a horse trainer and I would gentle a lot of wild Mustangs. And so I was driving, I think I talk about this in the video on my website, but I was driving down to the fairgrounds and I got this random phone call from this guy named Rob. And he said, hey, I know you don't know me, but I heard you're going to be at this fairgrounds and I need a horse picked up. Would you be willing to do that for me? And I said, sure, why not? You know, and I bring the horse home. And then here's this next relationship because I knew I wanted to have purpose, but I didn't know what that looked like yet. And so when Rob came to the farm, he told me that he did equine assisted psychotherapy and he started explaining it. And it was like I felt that in every cell of my body, like, this is what I'm meant to do. And now I feel like I could do it. If I would have met in timing too, right? Because if I
Yeah.
would have met Rob a year prior, you know, none of that may have worked out because I was in such a dark place or I may have brushed it off. But, you know, right person, right place, right time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the timing was perfect and he really inspired me as he was explaining what this was. And so I went out right away and started getting training and certification. And that was almost 20 years ago now,
Wow.
which is crazy to
Wow.
say. But yeah, so that was great. And so I got my business up and running. As a veteran, I had done 4 years in the Air Force and I was not serving in the military for a couple of years. But right around this time as well, I joined the Air National Guard.
Okay.
And so I'm taking these trainings and certifications. I'm also working part-time out at the guard base and I'm seeing the struggles. I'm seeing how people are training to go to combat and I know these people and then they deploy and then they come back and they're not the same. And then their relationships are starting to fall apart and they just seem a little off or maybe I see them starting to drink excessively and I'm noticing all these behavior changes. And so I kind of put two and two together with the equine healing and then the need that I was seeing from the people coming back from combat and melded the two. And that's when I developed Hooves, Healing of Our Veterans Equine Services. And what's very interesting and funny now, it was not funny at the time, but I put out a press release in the mail this was like social media was not really prevalent at the time, but I put out a press release to the local newspapers and I thought by doing this that people would just start showing up at my door. I had no idea about the impact of relationships. And so, you know, I'm just like sitting in my farm looking at my watch. Okay, where's all the people? They're just going to show up because I did a press release. That's how business works, right? You know, and I just want to like go back and pat little me on the head. But what was interesting is that through a mutual friend, I met a girl named Rachel Hobson. She's a coach. And so I was talking about what I was wanting to do. And I was talking about how nobody was showing up. And they said, you need to meet my friend Rachel. And so I met Rachel. She was lovely. It was my very first like official networking that I had ever done in my life. And Rachel was part of BNI, Business Networking Institute. And she took me with her and there were all these people and they got together once a week, every week to network and build relationships and build trust and pass referrals to each other. And their businesses were thriving. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a whole new world. And so I joined and then I met another lady named Debbie and she owns Connects Nation, and it is a business that specifically helps people network. So I took her training course and I learned how to network, and I learned also the value of, showing up, willing to receive, and also ready to give.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's actually interesting. A lot of the work that I teach in these healing intensives is about what we call fair exchange, and how everybody has a different way of giving. But when we get these divine relationships, we set these intentions, and then, the universe sends the people, and we all connect and we all show up with our gifts. It kind of completes the puzzle, and it takes our ability to have impact to the next level, right?
Yeah.
So that was, I probably like super jumped into the whole relationship thing, but it really inspired me when we were talking about it. And I was just kind of reflecting, like, the only reason that I'm where I am today is because of all the relationships. And one of the things I also had learned along the way is can't do it alone. Nobody can do it alone.
Yeah.
We like to think that we can. And I've tried, I'm guilty, and not because I wanted to do it alone, but I didn't want to burden anybody. I always felt like, oh, well, this is my dream and my mission and my vision. I should be the one putting in the work, but that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
so now, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're totally fine. And what I thought was so awesome when I saw the video on your website and insisted that my wife come watch it with me, and how you had this experience with horses where, it had such a profound impact on you, because in order to get the horse to do what you wanted it to do, you had to calm yourself. You had to just take a breath, relax, and when you were in control of yourself, then the horse became your partner and stuff. And so you had this experience. And of course, I am not doing justice in describing that experience at all. but
No,
what I thought, but what you shared, was that now, because you're in the military too, and you saw these veterans, who were friends of yours, that had gone to battle and come back, and now, because of that experience, they were different. Things were different, and it wasn't necessarily in a good way. And you came to the realization, like, oh my gosh, I can help these people and stuff. And you were able to put these pieces together, that without having that experience yourself, you would have not been able to do that. You would have not been able to do that. But now, because you did put it together, and like you said, there are people that once they got an understanding of your vision and stuff, they're like, man, Amanda, I want to help with this. I want to be supportive of this. Well, that's how you and I met, was through Stephanie talking about, I want to get more involved philanthropically. And that's what I have found to be true of many successful entrepreneurs, because a successful entrepreneur has got to the point in their lives and in their business where the goal of making money in their business is no longer a goal that excites them. They know how to make money. They know how to create revenue. And what excites them is they want to make a bigger impact in the world. And that can be through their business, that can be through the philanthropic work that they do, but it's the making impact that inspires us, and we just want to make a bigger impact. And I know that's what inspires me, is making a bigger impact. I want to impact millions of lives, and I don't give a damn if any of them know that I was there at all. I don't care. Doesn't matter. I know that I was having an impact. And, when we talk, so many, on so many up and coming entrepreneurs, myself included, when I was that way, I would look at entrepreneurs who I deemed or who I felt were successful and thought, oh, if I was more like them, then I'd be successful too. Or boy, they sure do have it all figured out. Well, no, that's not true. We're all doing the best we can with what we got, and we just want to make a bigger impact in the world. And you have really figured out how to do that. And you're 20 some years into this, but I'll also put out there, Amanda, you're just getting started too. And so,
I feel that. I feel that. And I do feel like my path has been unconventional in every form. And I've had a lot of people tell me over 20 years that I couldn't do what I'm doing, or that my goals are too lofty, or, it's too difficult, or, my favorite thing is when people tell me, oh, well, you can't do that because you don't have the resources right now. And so, I'm not saying that everybody should be like me. I love to say there are many paths to the sun, but I feel like the path that I'm taking is effective for me and may also be effective for other people, that, the conventional path isn't working. And so I've done this backwards, because I became philanthropic first when I had very little resources. But I had a vision to impact lives, and I had a system that works. I have a system that works. And the system that I have for what I do works better than any system that I've ever found. And I think a lot of that is because I'm constantly building and destroying and improving and learning and adding. And, it's a morph in any business. It's ever morphing and ever growing.
yeah.
But, I had small resources. I had people to show up, and I had a solid process. So even before we had the money or resources to really do any of this, I just started doing it. And people were like, well, in charities, usually you go and raise the money first so that you can provide the service. And I'm like, right, but I don't have, like, these people need me now. This is a matter of life and death. The people that we're working with a lot of times are at the end of their ropes. And so I just started to serve. And then those people were impacted, and then they would go and share their experience. And then they would bring people back that were like, hey, I'd love to help or support. And really, someday I probably should write a book on my story, because it is crazy. But I've just taken every step on faith, focused on service, and the resources always show up. And they rarely show up in the ways that I think that they should or wish that they would, but nonetheless, they always show up. And it's really just being open and not attached to forms. And I think sometimes, like, planning is good, but I'm more of like I have strategic initiatives instead of strategic plans, because I know what I want, but I don't want to limit the ways in which it manifests in my life.
Yeah.
Right. So I just kind of, like, even how we ended up, we have a beautiful 30-acre sanctuary and retreat center in Northwest Ohio. And we were at a small farm prior to this. It was not very nice. It just was what we could do. We had some rustic wooden tents that we would hold the workshops and retreats in. And I said a prayer one day. I was frustrated. I said, God, I am trying to do your work. We are trying to save lives. Can you throw me a bone here? I'd really love to have 30 acres on the park. And I'd love to have a natural water source running through. I don't know. I just got really specific. And in 3 days, I'm telling you, magic number. 3 days later, the lady that owned the farm that we're at now called me, and she said, hey, I'm going to sell this farm. I had known her. We boarded horses together years prior. And she said, before I put on the market, I'd love for you to come take a look. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So I came to the farm, and as I was driving down the driveway, I just was like, oh my gosh, this feels like home. And then she told me the price tag. And immediately I said, there's no way, like it's astronomical compared to, what we were paying at the other place. We didn't have the resources. And so most people would have just chalked that up to a loss and gone. But I was like, God wouldn't have put this in front of me if it didn't mean something. So there's more to the picture here. I have to expand my awareness. I have to look for resources that are outside of standard vision. And, I just sat with it and I kind of meditated, and I got this like intuitive nudge that said, write her a land contract. And I thought, that's ridiculous. People don't do land contracts, especially on properties that are this expensive. And, I did it anyway. And it was crazy because at the time we had a company come in and pledge $1 million, like right around in this whole process. So I'm like, okay, well, if we get this $1 million pledge, then, we can work this land contract out. So I think that's the only reason she agreed to it. So, the board votes, we decide to move in, we get the farm, everything is on the up and up. They sent representatives to our board meeting, and we were like, you're sure you're going to give us this money? Because we can't, and we had signed like a statement of understanding. And they said, yeah, the contract's at legal right now. Well, long story short, we were here for 2 months. We were supposed to start getting the money in January. It was October, and 2 days before Christmas, they pulled out. And now here we are in this catastrophically expensive farm. And, the farm we were at before, we were paying $900 a month for everything. And, my husband and I were just like, we don't even know what to do. But I'm like, okay, well, God put us here, so we're going to work. We're just going to work. And we spent that whole year. We didn't take a paycheck. We worked side jobs, and we invested a lot of our personal money into keeping the farm and everything. But along the way, we started to meet people, and they started showing up, and they were like, hey, I can help. And we ended up doing a Save the Farm fundraising campaign, and we raised $115,000 in 3 weeks and 2 days.
Wow.
Because of relationships, because the community knew what we were doing, and especially through the stories of the people who benefited from the program. Mm-hmm. And so even though I hadn't called on any of these resources before, we did a press conference, we went on the news, and I'm telling you, people just showed up out of the woodwork. So, was it stressful? Yes. Do I recommend that? No. But what I do recommend is not telling yourself that you can't have or do or be something because some system or person or society has told you that's not the way that you do it. If you know in your heart what you're supposed to be doing and you listen to your heart, the right person will show up at the right time always. It's never failed. It will never fail you.
Yep.
And I had one of my mentors had said, and this really put things into perspective for me too, is when we look at the natural law, and a lot of what we teach are the natural law or the universal principles. But when we seek support or we're attached to people supporting us, a lot of times in doing that, we'll attract challenge, right? It's the natural law of correspondence. But when we seek challenge, we attract support.
Yes.
And so that's been one of my kind of golden keys is instead of going out and always trying to get people to support us, I just share, like, we're taking on the challenge of veteran suicide. We're taking on the challenge of transforming post-traumatic stress into post-traumatic growth. Like, who wants to join? It's inspiring. And instead of being like, oh, Sarah McLaughlin, pour this, pour that, it's like, hey, we have a challenge. We've decided to take it on, and who's in?
That's right.
And it's inspiration, right? And I see people come together in droves to support that because, again, if you have something that works, a formula, a system, a product, like and you just stay true to it, everything you need will show up.
Yeah. Well, and you shared a couple things in there, that, once you got really clear on what you wanted, then it started showing up. And until, that's something that I work with entrepreneurs with on a regular basis, because most of us have never got really clear on what do I want? What do I really want to see happen? But when we do that, it's amazing what happens. The resources, the people, it shows up when we have clarity. And like you said, when we talk about our vision for what we want to accomplish, that's what gets people inspired. That's what gets them to be like, man, I want to be a part of that. And so, now that we've got some of this context, I want to shift gears just a little bit. And so I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. And so, Amanda, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story around this topic of relationships and give you the opportunity to honor, somebody or somebody's who have had such a profound impact on your life and on your business.
Yes, absolutely. So the first person that completely changed the trajectory of my life, who I definitely would not be here without, is my husband, Justin. And we met in 2015. So I had been running the program and the business with my dad. We started a farm together back in 2006.
Okay.
And in 2013, he passed away unexpectedly. And I lost everything. I lost my farm. I shut down the program. I lost most of my horses. So like a catastrophic loss. And I just took my degrees and I went and got a job doing marketing at a pain clinic. And it was grueling. But during that time I had met my husband, and it was funny because I swore I would never get married again. And, I met him and I was kind of like, yeah, I've got all this crazy stuff going on. You probably don't want to stick around. And he's like, what could be so bad? And I'm like, well, I have like 6 horses and, this and that. And he just said, well, how can I help you? And I was like, what? And so he did. He just like picked up a pitchfork, and he has, and to this day, has helped me build this entire sanctuary, just working relentlessly hard. And, he says all the time, and he now has his own program. He does bike packing, cross-country bike packing for veterans who are battling addiction.
Wow.
But for 5 years, he literally put his whole life on hold. And he said, all you ever talk about is hooves and, the work that you used to do with the veterans. And I said, I know, but, now I had to grow up and I got a real job. And he said, I think you need to start it back up. Like, you're not going to be happy until you do. And he was so right, because I don't know if I would have tried again. I was so tired and I was pretty discouraged after I lost everything the first time. And so he was really instrumental, and he's been my number one fan, and really anything I need, anytime I need anything done. He is a house painter by trade, and he's a wonderful carpenter, and he's done all the remodeling on the farm, and he's built all of the things and put in all the fence. So yeah, he's my biggest hero, and really can't imagine where my life would be if he wouldn't have stepped up. So he's a huge part of the success here. So he was huge, instrumental in this. And then also I had formed the nonprofit with my dad before he passed, but he funded everything. And so we not actually solicited for donations up until that point. We just had our status. And he died a week before. He had dropped his life insurance, and we actually had an appointment to go get all the financial and business stuff sorted out. And he died 3 days before. So he had no life insurance or anything, which is why, we lost everything, which is fine now, no regrets. But another entity, not necessarily a person, that showed up was the American Legion, the Auxiliary, the VFW, and the Sons of the American Legion clubs. And so I remember I had just, my friend agreed to take a couple of my courses. I didn't know how I was going to pay for hay. Everything was a struggle. And I got asked to come and talk about hooves at a VFW. And I spoke, and these men were like weeping. I don't even know what I said. And at the end, they cut me a check for $2,500. And I just couldn't believe it. It was so much money at the time, and I was crying. And he said, we take care of our own. I remember he looked me dead in the eye and he said, we take care of our own. And it's no lie. And so I thought, wow, gosh, if this one Legion gave me this money, maybe I should go talk at more, right? And so that year we raised $12,000 for hooves. I thought it was like the coolest thing ever. And now it's, our budget is much, much larger than that now. But the American Legion family, there's been many times where I thought we were not going to be able to continue and go forward. And some chapter, some club, whether it's the Legion Riders or the Auxiliary or the Sons or the Legion, they have shown up to save the day so many times and have really carried us till, now we obviously get corporate donations and things like that. But we also would not be here without the Legion family. So they've been amazing to us and continue to work with us and help us grow in many ways. And then the third person that was instrumental is one of my dearest friends and mentors, Stephen Gardner. And he owns a company called Beyond Personal Development. And he and I attended a lot of personal development training seminars together. And, the life of an entrepreneur is typically filled with lots of personal development. But I think sometimes we can get caught on the hamster wheel of personal development, where we spend more time developing and less time associated to reality. And I know that was kind of something that was tripping me up. It's like, I am the junkie of personal development. I've read every personal development book. I'm constantly working on myself. But I'm still not where I want to be. And I'm still having these challenges that I don't feel like I should be having based on the amount of work I've done. And Stephen has been able to move really beyond that rat race. And he has come up with a process called the Art of Integrated Appreciation.
Okay.
And I remember again, this was kind of like a download. We were like peers, and we were taking a lot of the same classes and following a lot of the same people. And he was still struggling. I was still struggling. And one day he said he woke up with these questions in his head, and he kind of put them into a process. And he developed them over the years. But I was really stuck in what I was able to bring in. And I had never brought in more than, I think, like $5,000 from anywhere. And I said, I'd love to get to the $10,000 mark. And he said, well, you're deflecting the flow of money because you are not in fair exchange. And I'm like, what's this fair exchange thing, And so he took me through this process. And I had a retreat that I wanted to put on, but we were going to have to cancel it because we didn't have the money, and I needed this money. And he did this process with me. And the next day we got $10,000. And it was the most amount of money we had ever, gotten before. And it was, that really changed the trajectory. And so he started working with me, and, now I'm able to get much, much, much larger donations than that. But, you know, at the time it was like, wow, I really was blocking a lot of things. And I was just so stuck on like, I can't have what I want because I have to do more personal development. And it's like, I can't have what I want because I have done so much personal development that I'm now chronically disassociated. So I need to get back in my body so I can open up that heart center, you know, and again, you know, it's the vibration and the attraction and the clarity, right? Like, just like you said, the more clear you can be, the easier it is to bring in the relationships and the goals that you want. And so Stephen last year decided to open up his first facilitator training for this method. And so I was his first client. I was the first one to sign up for his certification program. And even doing that has taken things to the next level. And now it's something that I facilitate the veterans through when they come here.
Wow.
And now I think they were getting profound results before, but I think we just 10x'd the results that they're getting and really making, this is the most powerful thing I have ever seen in my entire life. And I think it's really made our program the most powerful program for veterans out there. It's just such an important piece that is so transformative. So Stephen definitely did change the trajectory of my life. He's from Canada. He lives in Calgary right now. So I'm desperately trying to get him to come here in person and facilitate a retreat with me this year. So we're working on that right now.
Wow. Wow.
But yeah, he's so inspiring. And he was really the one that was able to kind of break that rat race. Because it's hard when you feel like I'm doing all these things these gurus are telling me to do and I'm still not getting where I want to be. So that was invaluable.
You know, you packed so much in there, Amanda, and you know, so much of it, what you shared just hit home with me personally too. And you know, whether you know, you talk about God, so do I. Somebody else might refer it to, you know, God as the universe, whatever. But
yeah, whatever.
Here's the thing: it's like, you know, it's the God in the universe. There is like when it comes, like, you know, whether it's 2,500, 5,000, 100,000, it's just a figure, is all it is. And you know, it took me a long time to figure this out, that you know, when we're talking with the right people, you know, so for me, for example, I serve, you know, already established entrepreneurs who we share, we have shared core values, and that they're focused on, I want to make a bigger impact in the world. Because entrepreneurs at that level, when they have problems and challenges, it's worth more to them to solve those challenges and problems because of who they are. And I'm really good at helping those entrepreneurs solve challenges and problems. And I'm also really good at helping them get a whole lot more clarity around, what do I want? You know, who do I want to be and what do I want? And getting clarity around it, because I said, you know what, until we know what you want, how do we, I don't know who to connect you with. But once I know what you want, and I'm clear on that, and you're clear on that, now we can make that happen. But we got to be clear on what it is that you want, you know?
Yeah.
And
I just want to say too, and this is something that I see a lot in the people that I help, is that a lot of times people know in their hearts what they want, but they won't admit it to themselves because they feel like what they really want is not actually available to them.
Yeah.
Because at some point in their life, somebody's told them that it's not.
Yes.
And so, because that's the question I always ask too, whether it's business or life, like, what do you want? You know, people come in with their stories and then you say, well, what would you like to have instead? And then they just shut down. right? Or like, I don't know, right? And I don't know. I don't know if you hear that a lot, but I hear that a lot. I don't know. And I always love to come back with, I don't know actually means I'm afraid to look,
Mhm. Mhm.
because you do know.
Yeah.
You're just afraid that if you say it out loud, that it's not available to you, and that it's going to somehow, like in some form, disappoint you. Uh, and so I think too, like I always tell people, if you feel like you say you don't know, or you really feel like you don't know, you actually do know. So I love to ask the question, like, what is it that you truly want that you feel like might not be available to you?
Yeah.
And then work with that, because I promise it is. No matter how crazy it is, it's available to you.
That's
It
right.
just might not come to you in the form that you think it should be in.
Yes. Yes. That's absolutely right. Yes. And I will tell you that, whatever we want is absolutely available to us. And not only that, and anything that we want or desire, it's available to us. But, and like you said, it may not come through the channels that we thought, but it's going to come. And when we just kind of let go of, like, I want it to come this way or what have you, and we just show up, as the best version of ourselves. And like you were talking about earlier, show up with the intention to give, to help, to serve, to pour into others, and also show up with the intention to receive as well. And that because I am a giving and generous person, that's just who I am at my core, I also get to receive. I also get to give others the opportunity to be generous and giving. And I can tell you from personal experience, what comes back is so much bigger, so much more grandiose than anything we could have actually thought of in the first place.
So
Because
true.
that's how
Oh,
God
absolutely.
works. That's how the universe
That is
works.
1,000%.
Yeah. Well, Amanda, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to share your story, your experience today, and honor some people that have had such a profound impact on your life. And, I know that, the goal of this podcast has always been twofold: to give entrepreneurs like yourself the opportunity to share your story and your experience, but also for the listener, I want them to be inspired to just, to place a more intentional focus on creating more real, meaningful, rewarding, and profitable relationships in their own lives. And we have definitely delivered on that here today. And I want to thank you so much for your role in that. And for anybody that's listening to this going, man, Kevin, I absolutely love Amanda. I know you talked a little bit about your organization, but what are some resources? How can they find out more about the work that you guys are doing and all that?
Yeah, so I have two businesses. I have the nonprofit, which is called Hooves, Healing of Our Veterans Equine Services. And we provide free and no cost 4-day intensives to veterans who are challenged with mental health issues. And that website is hooves.us. There's tons of information on there. And then I have also, because I've developed a model, I have what's called the Equine Wisdom Institute. And that's where I actually teach other people who want to make an impact in the world and have horses how to do so through the 4-day intensive process. And that website is equinewisdominstitute.org.
Very good. Very good. Okay. And I'll make sure that we include that with the show notes as well. And so, well, Amanda, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. Is there any last thing you want to share before we call it a wrap?
Oh gosh. I always have a lot to share, but I would just say, if you're listening to this right now and you feel like you're struggling, or maybe you're not getting where you want to be in life, just to reiterate what we talked about, clarity. And I feel like one of the things that I used to say all the time is, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? And, why is God making this happen? And one of the most valuable things that someone shared with me, or I would ask, like, I need God to show me what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. And it's like, they said to me, like, God does not want to show you the way, and God is not going to show you the way. God wants to co-create with you, and whatever God that is to you, or universe, or whatever. God wants to co-create with us, and He's never going to show us what we're supposed to be doing. Your heart, you already know what you're supposed to be doing. Your heart knows.
Yeah.
So just make that decision, go in 100%. And the resources and the people will always show up to be there with you and help you. I always think about Indiana Jones when he has to take that step, and then it just appears, and then another appears, and another appears.
Yeah.
So you can't fail. It's not possible.
That's right. That's right. Well, Amanda, thanks again for having this conversation. I really appreciate it. And this was absolutely amazing.
Thank you, Kevin. I truly appreciate the opportunity.